Wolfpack, what is going on? It's your boy, the Wolf of Roto Street. RotoStreetJournal.com, we breed and feed you fantasy wolves. Here with your Week 12 Waiver Wire Pickups show, getting you all the guys you need to add that are out there in over half of your leagues to get you ready for some dominant stretch runs. Come on in, Wolfpack. Get your questions on in. As you know, I will always answer everything we receive at the end of the show. I'll take about 30 minutes or so to go through my top 15. This week is pretty loaded. To give you an overall picture of it, I had 15 guys I had to just go into. I couldn't limit it to my usual top 10. So ultimately, a little bit longer of a list. I'll try to get through them as fast as I can, though, so I can, of course, hit every single question that you guys have. We'll start at the top, though, as we always like to, with our first checks. And as you come in here, whether you're live or catching the replay, a thumbs up button would be so greatly appreciated to help us keep getting out to more people, keep growing the Wolfpack. Thank you again for joining us. Let's dive on in to who you should check for first. At the running back position, two guys that are still out there in roughly 40% of leagues that should be 100% owned at this point. So just tossing them out there in case your league is sleeping at the wheel. One of them is Isaiah Pacheco, 64% rostered. He's actually under 50% in ESPN right now. So he could be out there for you guys depending on where you play. He had 15 carries, was the first Chiefs running back to go over 100 yards, 107 in their win against the Chargers. A nice matchup, a good spot for him to go off, and he did just that. Ultimately, the bigger news was CEH, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, suffered a high ankle sprain in the win over the Chargers, so that ultimately opens the door for this to maybe become a two-headed backfield rather than a three-headed nightmare. That was a ton of red zone work. CEH's biggest thorn was being a red zone threat here. Maybe Ronald Jones comes in and inherits that, but the door could be wide open for Pacheco, a nice rusher looking very solid every time he totes the rock to then become a big touchdown threat in addition to an 80 to 100-yard rushing game. Plus, they have an easy, soft schedule down the stretch, which would lead to them bleeding the clock more often. In addition, Rachaad White, maybe because of the bye, I don't know why, but still just 62% rostered. He will, quote-unquote, retain the Bucs starting job when the team returns, according to the Athletics' Greg Auman. That is just speculation, but I imagine after he went 22 carries and 105 yards his last time out there, looked like the best running back on the roster when he finally got the extended usage. I think Rachaad White definitely does hold on to this role. Remember, he is a top 5 receiving prospect of the last 5 years, on par in PFF's grades and metrics with McCaffrey, Eckler, some of the most elite backs we've seen come into this league as pass catchers. He graded it right up there with all of them. He was a monster when Fournette left the game, 20 of possible 25 snaps. Now, it does sound like Fournette should be back and ready to go, but Rachaad White may have just taken this job, or at minimum given them a chance to rest Lenny so he can be ready to go for his playoff stretch, as we've always seen. So I do love him as well. Last guy on the list is Josh Palmer at the wide receiver position. Would be the first receiver I look to add after his best day of the season. 10 targets, 8 catches, 106 yards, 2 touchdowns. That was even with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, at least for a quarter. Mike Williams back in the lineup. He kicked off the action on their first drive with a 50-yard touchdown. Palmer with both guys on the field, and then later became the go-to guy for Justin Herbert. Those two have really forged a nice bond. He's got over 40 targets in their last 4 games. Coming from Justin Herbert, that cannon arm, a good offense. That's what we dream about. Great opportunity that should never be out there in over 40% of leagues right now. So go out there and check. Even if the both two guys are active, it seems like he is locked in to a clear-cut role in a high-volume attack, high, fast-paced attack. Got to go check for Josh Palmer. All righty, Wolfpack. We'll now dive in to the guys that are 50% or more rostered. And again, please do consider getting us that thumbs up button, helping us get out to more people. It would be so greatly appreciated. And get your questions on in. Missing a bunch of the Wolfpack here at the moment, so it would be great to see us get those numbers back up. We'll dive into, at the top, Treylon Burks, my favorite pickup of this week across all positions. I think he has legitimate season-winning upside for you. It happens every single year. We see a wide receiver that has done minimal to nothing and just goes completely berserk down stretch ones. I would not be shocked at all if that is Treylon Burks here in 2022. I do think Christian Watson's the better bet for that. He was a monster already for 2 straight weeks, But if it's not him, Burks is the next best bet. He has 8 targets, 7 catches, 111 yards in their Thursday night football win. Beautiful first half. 6 catches for 60 yards to kick off the game, looking like an every down, just target hog to start the game. He didn't have much else. They kind of bled the clock the rest of the way until a beautiful breadbasket 51-yarder down the field. Looked amazing there on that sense. And ultimately, he had a great just after the catch deep down the field. All the skill sets that could make him a monster down the stretch. Now, he wasn't my favorite prospect coming in. I actually had him towards the bottom of my dynasty rankings. But ultimately, some compared him to like a linebacker-sized Deebo Samuel, given his ability on screens and all that great run after the catch. He also has the deep catching ability, as we just saw this week, too. Both of those things could make him a mammoth. He ran fewer routes than both Woods and Westbrook-Ikhine. He needs to continue to see that role grow. But what's huge is the fact that he was targeted on 38% of his routes. That is alpha levels, folk. Great to see there. The clear-cut number 1 option there on Thursday. And yes, it's a low-volume attack. So what is the true ceiling of that? I'm not sure 100%. But, man, it could be beautiful here down the stretch. So really big fan of Treylon Burks, the talent, great opportunity in front of him. When he finally got used, he did thrive. So good to see that there. Now, Latavius Murray becomes my number 2 ad of the week with big news that Melvin Gordon has been released by the Broncos. They are done, fed up with his fumbleitis happening yet again on the goal line. Can't believe it. Pretty big, drastic measures to just cut the guy outright. Could never have happened when Javonte Williams, you got to turn the keys over to Latavius Murray, not Javonte Williams while he was healthy. Nonetheless, he is gone, as is, at least for the next 4 weeks, Chase Edmonds, who was placed on injured reserve today. It's not sexy. Latavius Murray doesn't drip in this appeal like an athletic Treylon Burks, who I have ahead of him on the waiver wire. But, man, it could just be great, usable volume here on out. Could be a 3-down skill set, 18 to 20 touch guy. They got the 6th easiest rest of season schedule for running backs, the Broncos do. And they average Denver the 2nd highest running back target share in the entire NFL, with 25.1% of their looks going to backs. Murray was already pretty active on this team. In fact, he saw 45% of the snaps, but 49% of the carries compared to just 29% for Gordon since joining the team. So he's been highly active as early, it's no further than last week. 17 carries, 49 yards, and a touchdown. Also 4 catches for 23 yards. Nice 15-point day. And on the year, even in this 3-headed at times committee, running back 19, running back 26, running back 29, running back 21, running back 24, and running back 11 in all of his starts since joining this team. Not too bad. And now you remove all other mouths. Yes, Marlon Mack will get activated and they might bring in somebody. And I do want to caution, Mike Boone does wait in the wings, and he certainly has more juice than Latavius Murray if he is healthy. But for right now, we got to go with what we know. And I imagine even when Boone comes back, we're looking at 15-plus touches a week, and Murray can plod his way. It's an abomination of an offense. We know that. But still, he's already been a decent touchdown threat, even in this sickening scheme. I think he's got legitimate top 20-ish running back every single week, starting as early with Carolina. Again, this is the week, no doubt. Get him in your lineups. Top 5 matchup for running backs. He could just feast this week. They're going to want to establish him, get him going, even with Marlon Mack again and Mike Boone eventually coming back. I think we got a 3-down back, as ugly as it is. Moving forward, Darius Slayton, 51% rostered, so only about half a leagues he'll be there for you. He's been really, really solid for the last 6 weeks, though. 29 targets since week 5 for the Giants, leading the team by a good stretch there. 21.4% targets per route. That's not elite, but it certainly is something that can get you the job done, and especially when what is your competition at this point? Wan'Dale Robinson looking electric this last weekend. 13 targets, zigging and zagging all over the field, looking great. Ultimately, that's not going to be an issue because he's now torn ACL, and I'm not sitting here excited for that. I was really excited to see Wan'Dale continue to build on his success and get out there more and more. But now that he's removed, who else does he have to contend with? The ghost of Kenny Golladay, David Sills, Marcus Johnson? That's what we're dealing with here. there should be no one in his way to seeing yet again 10-plus targets. We saw it this last week, caught 5 of them, Darius Slayton, for 86 yards. Ho-hum, another double-digit fantasy point day across his last 6. Half PPR points, 11, 2, 13, 9, 17, and 11. Just solid. No true blow-ups. I mean, that wide receiver 12 week last week against Houston looked real nice, but just solid, steady. I think you can depend on that the rest of the year. So I really like this guy, Darius Slayton. If he's out there in your league, could be very viable. If you miss out on Darius Slayton, Donovan Peoples-Jones, I say him every single week, Wolfpack. He is still out there. 5 of 6 targets, 61 yards, and a score. His first touchdown of the year. He has been rock solid even without the touchdowns, though, with 50-plus yards in 7 straight weeks, 70-plus yards in 5 of 7 weeks, and 10-plus fantasy points in 5 of 7 weeks in half PPR and full PPR. You bump that up to all but 1 week, and he never got lower than 9. So a nice floor. It's the same argument. You've heard me say it before if you're regular to this show. We've got a nice floor, solid outputs here, top 35 wide receiver in most of his weeks, wide receiver 14 this last week. And then you got Deshaun Watson coming back, a great deep ball passer who should only continue to up his ceiling there. So big fan there of DPJ moving forward. They also have a top 5 schedule for your fantasy football playoffs there. So really like DPJ down your stretch runs. Parris Campbell, another guy to feel really, really good about here down your stretch runs. 40% rostered. I would say all these receivers, Slayton, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Parris Campbell, bid 20 to 25% minimum. And if you're wide receiver needy, any of these guys are justifiable at the 30% or more range, given we're towards the end of the season here. Definitely could see them going crazy down the stretch, especially Parris Campbell. In his last 4 games with Matt Ryan, he's averaging 18.5 fantasy points. That would be the wide receiver 8 on the season. 11 targets, 12 targets, 9 targets, 6 targets. He loves throwing to the slot right now. A great spot for him. 15, 18, 17, and 9 points in those games I just referenced with Matt Ryan. He has been a top 12, a wide receiver 1 in 3 of those 4 weeks. The guy's been a beast, Parris Campbell. And yes, I get it. Jeff Saturday trying to establish the run. I don't think it will be quite as many pass attempts as we were getting used to with Frank Wright and Matt Ryan. But it's good to have Ryan back under center. It reinflates Parris Campbell's value. So anyone who dropped him while they were nervous about the Stan Ehlinger experience, rightfully so. That was just a disaster. Now that we got Ryan back, I think Parris Campbell is a very, very solid wide receiver 3 down your stretch runs. And if you're looking for one more very viable, very usable wide receiver at this point, Demarcus Robinson. I wouldn't be shocked. Now, this one's a little riskier than the other ones. We got a nice track record with Slayton, with DPJ, with Parris Campbell. But, man, I really like this Demarcus Robinson kid. It wouldn't be shocked at all. He's got maybe a higher ceiling than any of them because he could truly emerge as the alpha for Lamar Jackson here down the stretch. Only 4% rostered. So, of all the guys I just talked about, Demarcus Robinson is likely out there in your league. 9 targets, hauls them all in for 128 yards against the Panthers this past week. The number 1 in targets, number 1 in receptions, the number 1 in receiving yards, despite getting Mark Andrews back into the lineup. Moreover, Devin Duvernay, the presumed guy that was going to take over and be this alpha down the stretch, just 2 targets across his last 2 games. Lamar Jackson also raving about Demarcus Robinson before this game, saying he's playing lights out. We've known what he's capable of. We just have to keep feeding him the ball and feed him. Lamar Jackson did just target after target, and all Robinson did was come through with his guy. And this is actually not all this completely out of nowhere. 23.5, 19.1, and then 28% target share across these last 3 weeks for Demarcus Robinson. Obviously, we know the explosiveness that this offense can have, and the schedule is beautiful for them. Jacksonville, Denver, the only bad matchup on the schedule here. Then Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Atlanta, and Pittsburgh again. All 4 of those last matchups to close out the year are top 5 for wide receiver, including Atlanta and Pittsburgh, week 16 and 17, the best possible 2 matchups. Not saying this guy's a guaranteed Demarcus Robinson, but let's say he catches fire, becomes the number 1 wide receiver for Lamar Jackson, and then you got him cruising into your fantasy playoffs with those 2 matchups. Oh boy, he could be truly a season winner. But if you don't need a starting wide receiver, those are the 4 most usable guys at the wide receiver position. But let's say you're set and you just want upside. You've heard me talk about him before, but I would prioritize Odell Beckham Jr. over all of those guys. If you don't need a starter, you just want to put somebody with some real upside, the biggest ceiling of any of these guys, it's not really close just because of how athletic and how much of a freak Odell Beckham is. He's 44% rostered, but I would put at least a quarter of my FAAB down to go get him, given that he's expected to sign at some point this week. He said after Thanksgiving at some point. I think it's going to happen on Thanksgiving, and I think it's going to be to the Cowboys. Make a big spectacle. Who would ever think OBJ would make this huge spectacle of it? What better day than with the Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day? And what a perfect landing spot. The offense is finally starting to cook, finally starting to look like the offense of old with 49, 28, and 40 points in their last 3 games. And Gallup just doesn't look like he's back to health. And that's the risk with Odell. Maybe he's not. This is a second ACL tear. There's no guarantee with what he's going to look like. But, man, he definitely has that kind of freakish ability to just keep overcoming these injuries. Last year when he got traded to the Rams, had a touchdown in all but one game, was a top 24 receiver in 70% of those weeks, and then even took off further down the playoffs for this team. So, man, he could be a huge addition, stretch run for both the Cowboys or whatever team he goes to, and also your fantasy squads as well. Check out Odell Beckham if you want some upside. The other big rumor is the Giants reuniting with his old stomping grounds there with no more Wan'Dale there. I mean, Odell, when he's out, he's a souped-up Wan'Dale Robinson. Could he be that move around peppering those layup Cooper Kupp-style targets? Absolutely. So whether it's the number 2 with the Cowboys, the number 1 with the Giants, maybe even somewhere else rumored with the Bills or Chiefs, obviously those offenses dripping sex appeal too. Odell has some serious upside. Wolfpack, we only got about 20 of you here with us or so. Please do consider hitting that thumbs up button. It doesn't seem like we're getting out to quite as many of you right now. I'm not sure. Get your questions on in. I don't know what's exactly going on there, but I would love to see more of you here. Love to answer some more questions. If this is what we get, that's what we get. But, man, it definitely seems like we're a little light here. So please do consider hitting that thumbs up button, helping us get out to more people. And if you're catching the replay, you like it, and you're new here, please do hit that subscribe button as well. Before we move on to some running backs and other guys I recommend picking up, I do want to continue to remind you of this app, Bettle. The link is in our description here for this great app. It's new. You can get on the ground floor. They're trying to get more people on there, get some feedback, and already I love this product. You swipe through matchups, you get some good battles going. They give you a free $25 to play with, test it out. You can match up with me, the Wolf. I faced off with Sarno this last week. Multiple of you guys out there. Awesome time. I think it's a great way to get those 1-week battles, capitalize on this amazing team. Who's the best out there? Enter the arena, prove your worth. Check out Bettle today. The link is in the description. Wolfpack, check them on out. Now, moving on to a running back stream this week. Samaje Perine, only 6% rostered. Could be a very quality running back too, though, considering what happens with Joe Mixon. Head injury, looked like a concussion. We don't know exactly what will happen there. Obviously, if Mixon's back, then this point is moot, and that's why Samaje Perine is as low as he is here. Only 15 to 20% FAAB or so is what I would drop on him because we don't know exactly that he'll be starting. But if he is, he's in a great spot because great receiver, 4 receptions, 52 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Now, I don't think he's going to catch multiple touchdowns every single week. That's not what I'm saying here. But also 11 carries, 30 yards, was the true every down back once Mixon left and ultimately thrived, was a top 10 running back this past week with, again, those 3 touchdowns through the air. The one reason not to be overly enthusiastic, even if he is starting, the Titans have been a brutal matchup for running backs all year, especially on the ground, giving up team 60-ish yards per show on the ground. They just stymied Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon the last time out. So I don't think Perine would do much on the ground here, but they are giving up the Titans the most receptions to running backs, and that is why we would like Perine if he is starting. Jamar Chase, should he remain out, and he's still seen on crutches the last time we heard about him, we could see another elite running back target share. T. Higgins, 22%, and only other than him, we got 21% target share for Joe Mixon there. That's a large type of volume here and a good pass-catching matchup for running backs. So Perine, should he make a start here, would be a quality running back too. The only other issue is no bye weeks this week. So how desperate are you for a starter? Like me, for example, I got my two horses in Eckler and McCaffrey. I got Jeff Wilson for my flex. I'm not going to go out here and bid a shitload to go get Samaje Perine, but he would also carry rest of season handcuff upside for the running back needy, in addition to a likely spot start this week in a tough matchup, but a sneaky good spot in terms of receiving upside, which is where you'd really be making your money with Samaje Perine. If you're looking for a tight end, look no further than Mr. Juwan Johnson, 30% rostered despite being the tight end 7 in fantasy right now. Why is he so high up? Because of the touchdowns. He's got 5 touchdowns across his last 5 games and been rock solid. He's been a top 8 option in 4 of those 5 weeks. He's been a top 5 option in 3 of those 5 weeks. Man, he's just good. A touchdown score. It seems risky, after this last week, 47 yards, a touchdown, because you look at the snap share. Troutman had the most snaps of all their tight ends with 40, then Johnson with 36, and then 24 for Taysom Hill. We know his role is only getting elevated according to their beat writers there. They want to get Taysom Hill more activated. That does make Johnson a risk to just disappear at any moment, as he did in week 8 against the Raiders with just 2 points. But still, that is tight end this year. It's touchdown or bust, and very few tight ends are scoring at the rate of Juwan Johnson is. I still think this guy, it's a tougher matchup this coming up week, but a nice soft rest of season schedule. Good athlete, like a converted wide receiver, big body, able to use that frame, whether it's Dalton or Winston. He's had great red zone chemistry with all these guys. So huge fan of Juwan Johnson. If you're tight end needy, I think 10 to 15% of your FAAB is well spent with Juwan Johnson, maybe even more if you truly need him. Now, a big question of this week is likely going to be, which of these Rams running backs do I prioritize, if any of them? Rams did waive Darrell Henderson here. Why? I'm not sure. You look at their 11 weeks, 70 carries for Henderson, 283 yards. That's 4 per clip, 3 touchdowns, 22 targets, 17, 102. Not bad. Then you look at Akers. He had more carries, 76, less yards, 237. That was 3.1 yards per carry. Just 1 touchdown, even on those fewer carries. Only hauled in 6 targets, hauled in just 2 of them. I mean, it's been gross. Akers has been by far the lesser back here, and yet the team lets go the more productive, the more efficient guy that was capable of shouldering the load. I don't get it. I'm not here to make sense of why Henderson was the one gone. He tweeted out sunglasses, seems to be happy to be out there. But last week, we saw what this backfield will likely look like without Henderson, even though he was active. Only 4 snaps for him, just 2 touches on the first drive, and then we didn't see him again. Now, how did the rest of the workload shake out? 35 of the snaps out of 64 total went to Kyren Williams, over half the snaps there. Not bad for the rookie, 55% snap share. We saw 25 snaps go to Cam Akers. How did the workload distribute? We saw 7 carries go to Kyren Williams, 36 yards, looking like he got some juice there, and ultimately was the every down back on 2-minute drill, 18 of 18 snaps. Third down, saw 7 of 8 snaps. So he was the clear-cut pass-catching option here, Kyren Williams. And that makes sense. Looking at his profile, an uber-productive 3-down guy at Notre Dame. Did not have a great athletic profile. In fact, a bad athletic profile. But if you just look at the production, was elite. So where do those two things meet? We've talked about that multiple times when highlighting this guy as a potential pickup. Has a 3-down skill set and certainly adept as a pass catcher. We're already seeing him monopolize those snaps. So to me, that's the guy I want to go to, despite Cam Akers doubling up the carries, seeing 14 carries and actually looking the best he's looked all year with 61 yards on them. Couple nice runs there as he hits his season high. That's pretty pathetic. That 61 yards is a season high, but did look better than we've seen. Remember, he's coming off an Achilles tear. This is expected for him to start slow here. But Cam Akers, just still, even looking at his best this year, still didn't really pop off the page. Whereas Kyren Williams, even though he is a minimal athlete, he had some nice runs in there. Looked like he had a bit more wiggle, a bit more juice. And if this season's truly over, if one of these guys is going to just inherit like a 3-down role and McVay says, screw it, let's see what we got, I think Kyren definitely profiles as that. Like, let's see. We've already seen what Cam Akers can do. Why not in a loss year, turn the keys over, give this guy 65, 70% of the workload? So to me, the ceiling play is 110% Kyren Williams. I don't see much upside to rostering Cam Akers, despite the quality track record he's had in his past. This isn't the year for him, is my opinion. We've had plenty of chances for it to be, and it's not. All this to say, and to put a bow on it, though, is they are averaging far and away dead last points as a backfield in terms of running back average, 13.7 per game. Abysmal as a backfield, not a player, as an entire, all of it added up together. Sickening, hideous. That's bad. The next closest is the Steelers, the second worst, and they're averaging 3 more points than that, or actually 5 more points rather, 18.6 team backfield fantasy points per game. And that's the second worst. So a touchdown better almost than the Rams. So they have been abysmal. It's not a backfield that I'm sitting here like, go blow 40% of your FAAB because Henderson's here and you need a back. Nah, not for me. I don't love going after these guys too hard here. But again, if I'm picking one, it is Kyren Williams. He does, I think, deserve to be on benches just to see what happens, given the pass catching role, given his 3-down skill set, and given that this is a lost year that I might want to turn the keys over to somebody. All that seems to line up for Williams being the preferred option, but they're number 9 and 10 on this list for a reason, pretty down here low. All righty, well, Peck, that's our top 10 guys. But as mentioned, this is a top 15 list because I did like just a lot of options here. But I'll go through these guys quicker so we can get to those questions. Please do. We got now 30. Now we're starting to pick the pace up. Love to see about 30 of you here with us. That's what we're here for. Love to see it. Please do consider, if you're just tuning in, the thumbs up button to keep getting us out to new people. If your name is new here, you haven't been here yet, do consider that sub button as well. We're live 4 times a week, including live Thanksgiving morning, baby. Kick it off. Let's get a couple beers in at 10 a.m. What's better than that, right? Get your sit starts answered. Get a couple early pops in before your turkey's cooking in the oven. You get the nice smells. You get your sit starts answered. Come on over, 10:30 a.m. I'll be live. So if you haven't already, hit that bell so you know we're live, or find me at Rose Street Wolf. I'll always tweet it out when I'm about to go live. All righty, number 11 on my list is Jameson Williams. And again, similar to kind of Odell on this sense, like if you don't need a starter, he's probably got a whole lot more upside than a lot of the guys I've talked about. Given he's got 99th percentile speed size score at 6'1", 4.340, a game wrecker in literally every sense of the word. He put up last year 1,572 yards, 15 touchdowns at Alabama, facing the best of competition, would just wreck games. The biggest type of game. We had Mike Tannenbaum on our podcast. He said the number one prospect for the long term for him was Jameson Williams, comparing him to Tyreek Hill and his ability to just completely turn a matchup. Now, will we see that this year? I don't know. We can't guarantee it, but he was activated today off the IR. He's going to be able to start practicing. And yes, we know this team is taking it slow, and they have a number 1 target hog in Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's not going to change. He's going to remain a 10-plus target guy, even with Williams back. Now DJ Chark's eventually returning to the lineup. He is activated off the IR as well. So it's pretty congested for a team that's 28th in passing aggression, according to Next Gen Stats, 21st in pass rate over expectation. And the defense seems to be tightening up. The whole thesis earlier, which what made Jameson Williams so attractive, was because of how down this defense was and how much they would constantly have to be chasing points. That doesn't necessarily seem to be the case with this Lions team anymore. I still just betting on talent often works out. And even if you only get 3 to 4 games down the stretch, I could see him being that type of flex play. You put in 70-yard bomb on red zone after the team is already down 2 touchdowns. Jameson Williams lighten up the scoreboard. Welcome to the NFL, rookie. Like, we can all see Scott Hansen going nuts over this guy at some point this year. So I think there's a little bit of upside to rostering him, seeing what happens. Similarly, huge upside to stashing James Cook. Now that we're almost out of the bye weeks, these are the type of guys that make better, higher quality roster stashes when you don't need those fill-in, plug-in plays. You got 5 ugly weapons. You have to plug into your 5 bye weeks. That's not what we need anymore. We need upside on our benches, and James Cook certainly drips in it. Every time he touches the rock, if you got eyeballs, you've been watching games, you can see this kid pops. 11 carries for 86 yards over the Browns. Yeah, Browns, abysmal run D, so wasn't like we should go crazy over this, but still, Cook looks so fast off the line. He's displaying that similar vision to his brother when he cuts up through the everything. And what if something ever does happen to Devin Singletary, playing about 70% of the snaps right now, Cook kind of coming in for mop-up duty once this team gets up big. But if something ever happened to Singletary, we're not about like blow the FAAB load guys. James Cook would absolutely be one of them. Dontrell Hilliard, another one of those handcuffs that would be blow your load, go get this guy. So why not go get him now? Get ahead of it. And even if nothing happens to Singletary, it's clear, they want to keep elevating his role, get him going because he deserves it. He's proving he deserves it. Wouldn't be shocked at all if this 11 carry, 86-yard day is the sign of better things to come, more carries to come. Nyheim Hines was a little more involved this week than he had been since arriving with the team, but did absolutely nothing with his snaps. So I'm not worried about him. I really, really like the handcuff with benefit type of appeal to James Cook at only 17% rostered. Get ahead of the crowd and go check this guy out. Last three here. We got Skyy Moore. A lot of injuries enabling Skyy Moore at 6% rostered to get a solid target share, a career high as of right now. 6 targets, hauls in 5 for 63 yards. All of those were his season highs. And we saw a lot of the route running that made him such a special prospect, that made him a second-round pick for the Chiefs, looking really, really solid. Once Kadarius Toney left the game, we had no Juju Smith-Schuster. Who knows if either of those guys will be back to the lineup, but it was really encouraging to see Moore finally get some extended run and do nothing but impress well in there. Pat Mahomes raved about him after the game, so earning his trust, earning Andy Reid's trust, that could lead to an elevated role. Again, similar to the Treylon Burks to a much lesser degree. I feel yes and no in the sense that like he's playing with Pat Mahomes. So if Skyy Moore's role does get elevated from here on out, like give me him 10,000 times over the guy that's stuck with Ryan Tannehill, right? But I'm confident that Treylon Burks has earned that near every down role that will continue to thrive. Whereas Skyy Moore, who knows what happens when Juju, Kadarius Toney get themselves healthy. But great encouraging performance. And if that role gets elevated, you got yourself a potential. I don't want to keep tossing out league winner, but anybody getting balls from Mahomes here is well worth your consideration. So you got bench space, again, upside. And that's why like Jarvis Landry's at 14. Do you need somebody like this? Did have 33 yards and a score, 4 targets. Like Andy Dalton does like those guys. So there are a couple more bye weeks left, 14 in particular. This week 14 is a lot of bye weeks. Actually, Landry's a week 14 bye week. So what am I even talking about here? That's just kind of like the low upside bench guy. Do you need a Landry anymore? But good to see him getting involved in every snap player. And obviously Michael Thomas ain't coming back. So maybe he does something down the stretch. And similar like Nico Collins, like, is there any like Brandon Cooks does he even belong on rosters at this point? We've seen Nico Collins lead the team in targets back-to-back weeks. He's got 17 across his last 2 games, 48 yards on 5 catches. It was like, meh. But, PPR leagues, there's going to be some real volume here. They're going to suck. They're going to need to throw. Although they just kind of want to lose fast. They keep bleeding the clock even when they're down like 14 points. So that's why these guys are 14 and 15. Nothing too sexy to them or to Logan Thomas. I guess I want to toss him out there, 6% rostered. If you're desperate for a tight end, he played all the snaps, saw 6 targets, 5 catches, 65 yards. We've seen him be a tight end 1 in the past, Logan Thomas. So just a few last guys to mention. Alrighty, we'll pack 25 of you with me. Love to see it again. If you haven't already, please do consider that thumbs up button. The last step before we get to your questions, which a lot of you I probably share are here for, our Week 12 defensive streamers. Let's dive on in. I got 5 of them I really, really like this week. I'll go in order of what I prioritize them. The first being the Kansas City Chiefs facing the Rams. Even if Stafford was playing, it's the top matchup for fantasy defenses right now. They are trotting out third stringers on an already abysmal line. If there's one thing the Chiefs do really well as a defense, they give up a lot of points, but they are great at getting to the passer. 5 sacks in 3 of their last 4 games. They've actually been the 7th best fantasy defense across that span. So already a top 10 option now with their best matchup of the year. And then they might get Bryce Perkins, a third string quarterback here. And yeah, he brings a little mobility. So maybe that's not, I probably prefer the statue of Stafford with no weapons back there behind a bad line. But Bryce Perkins is likely to turn that thing over. So you got touchdown upside. It is an opportunistic defense that gets after the passer. They could shut this team out completely. So I really, really like the Chiefs. Plus, you got a great playoff schedule, too. There's a little bit more benefit than just a 1-week stream to the Chiefs. You got Denver week 14, Houston week 15, Seattle, not the best of matchups in week 16, but then Denver again, the worst offense in the league twice in their last 4 weeks. Oh, baby, you got to love that. So Chiefs at 48% roster, my first option. The Jets, though, far more talented than really any available defenses at this point. I think a top 5 defense in the league. And the numbers back that up in terms of scoring. Like they're holding offenses to the 7th fewest points since the last 11 weeks. And yet they're only 6-4 because Zach Wilson is just an absolute piece of shit. But that doesn't matter, especially with Zach Wilson potentially getting benched this week. 47% rostered. The Bears, have they been on fire? yeah, Justin Fields is playing out of his mind, but there's a good chance Fields, with a dislocated shoulder and a lost season, could get sat this week. And even if not, do you think they're going to be running him around and using him as that dynamic threat that's made this offense so capable these last few weeks? I don't know. I'd be highly surprised to see that. The Jets also have 6, 5, and 6 sacks their last 3 weeks against a team giving up the second most sacks in the league right now. And sure, Justin Fields is tough to bring down, but that line is awful. This pass rush is insane. So I really like the Jets to turn them over, to get to Fields, or better yet, Trevor Siemian this week. So if they're somehow out there in your leagues, go get your Jets. I also really like the Dolphins, and it's not because their defense is great. Most metrics tell you they're not a great defense at all, but they get Houston. And what is better than this? 5 straight top 10 defenses the Texans have helped produce. Davis Mills has thrown at least 1 interception in 7 of his last 8 games. They have not scored more than 17 points in the last month. Their highest scoring game on the year was 24, and that was way back in week 4. They've given up 3+ sacks in 7 of their 10 games. Davis Mills sucks. This team sucks, and they are a great spot for any defense. I think if the Commanders can put up 19 fantasy points against them, then really anybody can, because the Commanders' defense is not good at all. So check out your Dolphins if they're out there. Check out your Colts if they're out there. 30% rostered at home against the Steelers. We know how insane the turnover rate right now it is for Kenny Pickett. He's looked pretty good. He's willing to chuck it, but he also turns it over at an extremely high clip, one of the highest in the NFL. And the Colts are coming off locking down the Eagles, one of the best offensive units in the league. 3 sacks, 2 takeaways, only 17 points against one of the better offenses in the league. And now you get one of the worst. 27th in total offense for the Steelers, 28th in scoring, 5th in giveaways, 14 in total on the year. And they're just 4th in fantasy points allowed to defenses right now. So a great matchup at home for a defense that just coming off a great effort against the Eagles. Plus, you're kind of bleeding the clock often with Jonathan Taylor. Good spot there for your Indianapolis Colts. And last but not least, on the other side of the ball, more boom, but also a lot more bust potential is the Steelers. They didn't come through last week, only 2 points. My bad if you played them, because I recommended them as one of my favorite streamers. Didn't come through, but they are, the Bengals are really turning things around. So that was an easy sit here. Now you have the Colts. They're tied for the league lead in sacks allowed. They rank 31st in the NFL in scoring at 15.7 points per game. And the AFC, they're one of the most generous defenses. They're 3rd most points to defenses, even ahead of the Steelers right now. So with TJ Watt back, with Minkah Fitzpatrick getting healthier, I really like the Steelers as an opportunistic team that can get after the passer, turn this team over. All they got to do is stop Jonathan Taylor. Big task for sure, but could see the Steelers having a nice day. So again, I rank them Chiefs, Jets, Dolphins, Colts, and then Steelers as my favorite potential streamers. Wolfpack, thank you again so much for your patience while I went through all those top pickups. Hopefully it was helpful with those 15 guys. To get through those questions, one last plea for that thumbs up button. One last plea, if you're new here, to hit that sub button. Would be so great to have you consistently showing up for us. But let's get to your questions, Wolfpack. Pick 3, JJ, St. Brown, DK, Gabe Davis, Daniel Howland, not bringing waiver wire questions to the waiver wire show. But you're here, and I'm happy, so why don't I answer it for you? And that's a really tough one, too. Great options. So we got to sit one. Hard time sitting JJ. I know he had a dud last week, but come on. St. Brown, can't really sit him either. Come down to DK or Gabe Davis, and both have blow-up upside. You got Gabe Davis back on the turf against Detroit, giving up the top 3 numbers to wide receivers. But DK, who do they have coming in here? I feel like it was a good matchup for the Seahawks. I don't know. Oh, it's the Raiders, who are okay against outside receivers, very generous to slots. Gun to my head. I mean, the tricky thing here too, Howland, is like all 3 of your receivers are gone on Thursday. So maybe they all blow up and you're like, you can hold that over your opponent's head all week. But there's something to be said about having some Sunday hope for a blow up. And DK certainly can bring that too. I probably bench DK though. I like Davis, but it would come down to DK versus Davis for me. And if you didn't want all your guys going on Thanksgiving, it's really close between those two. So that's not an awful tiebreaker. I just think Davis rather could go for another 30 on these Lions. They're so bad. Cousins or Jimmy G. I kind of like Jimmy G. We saw what he did with these weapons on Monday night, 4 touchdowns. They're opening the offense up now. They have all these toys, and it's not a bad matchup. His rest of the season schedule is juicy. So yeah, I like Jimmy G. Lomi with a 16-man. I'm in a 16-manner. It is tough sledding out there, huh? Oh, you already got Demarcus Robinson. See, my dad actually picked up and started Demarcus Robinson in our family league, looking like the real wolf out of all of us here. Last week, before he went crazy, so good stuff. Wide receivers are Higgins, A.J. Brown, Moore, Terrace Marshall, and Cobb. Should I try to sell high? If you can, but who's really going to like – I wonder what selling Robinson high looks like. Of course, if somebody's like all in and enamored with him and is going to give you something decent, sure. Yeah, definitely. But I think most people are going to look at it like fluke. You're trying to pawn off a fluke on me, and I don't think it's a fluke. So I don't think you're going to get the right value if trying to trade Robinson. I'd probably go for Rondale Moore, depending on his injury situation, and that way you just toss in Demarcus Robinson. I really like the guy down the stretch, and I think a lot of people, you're not going to get a proper value for what his upside is. I don't think anyone's out here trying to buy him. So yeah, we talked about Kyren Williams, Lomi. I hope he got those. I know he was released. I still think, given the fact that this backfield hasn't even averaged 14 points as a team, it's a low upside situation. But of the two, I definitely prefer Kyren Williams with that true 3-down skill set, the best potential option to just like, let's see what we got in a lost season. Let's turn the keys over and see what happens. And he definitely did lead the team. Yeah, as I said, 55% of the snaps last week, all the 2-minute, all the 3rd down work, other than 1 snap going to him. So yeah, there's a role here for sure. Would you grab Robinson even if you have Andrews rostered? Yeah, I mean, this offense flows through Andrews and maybe one other receiver, and it's clear it's not Duvernay at this point. So yeah, I think Robinson is certainly viable even if you have Andrews. Absolutely. Lomi, again, great questions from you. I appreciate your new name, I think. So hopefully you hit that sub button and come back regularly, Lomi, because you're asking some great questions I think a lot of people can benefit from. Opinion on James Cook. Marty said it, running back with CMC, Ramondre, Murray, and Kyren. So another guy I talked about, so you probably already saw it. So just to summarize those thoughts again, love the handcuff with benefits upside. 11 carries, 85 yards. This last week looks explosive every time he touches it. If something happens to Singletary, he'd be the guy everybody's lighting their money on fire to go get. So beat everybody else there. I like him, absolutely. Yeah, you've got a rock solid core. So, he's not necessary for your team, but if you have trash you can cut, then he's well worth a roster spot, and especially a 16-teamer. Howland, my guy, again, it starts on a waiver wire show, but hey, we'll answer him. Why not? Pick 3, Barkley, Etienne, Walker. It's got to be those 3. And I love Jeff Wilson. He's got the Houston matchup. I mean, he could go bananas, but what are those 3 do you bench? You got a good matchup for Walker, and I love the player. Etienne, who does he face? I guess you could consider benching Etienne, but he's been so good these last few weeks too. Like ever since Robinson got traded, he's been a monster. So it's the first 3 for me. Jeff Wilson's knocking on the door there. CPAT's not even in consideration, but Wilson is. All that to say that I go the first 3 guys. Sarah Riley, half PPR, need 2. Higgins, St. Brown, Wilson, Jamal Williams. It's this first 2 receivers. It's the target hogs there, Higgins and St. Brown. I mean, I love, again, the matchup for Jeff. You got the 3 touchdown upside from Jamal. You got Gabe Davis, who could go crazy. Ayuk just had 2 scores. Not Swift. Swift is not even in this conversation anymore. Sarah, I'm going to say it right now, no more Swift in these questions. Do I bench either of any of those guys for any of the guys you listed? No, probably not. I mean, Etienne versus Jeff, like the other question, and versus Gabe, it's close, but I go the first 2 along with the guys you're already starting. Pick up Demarcus Robinson, Nico Collins, or Chris Moore. Not Chris Moore. I'm going to go DeMarcus there, Giuseppe. Like, definitely the highest upside there. Wake up, Wolfpack. Yeah, let's get these questions going, Wolfpack. We missed it. And not a lot more, but hey, we'll get to as many as we get to. As many as you guys got. Good to see you, Bulldog. Who do I drop for DPJ or Trey Burks? So you go Trey Burks, I think, higher upside. I'm done with Cam Akers or A.J. Dillon or Jared Goff. If I think any of those 3. I would pick up both receivers and drop. If you have Field, drop Goff. You might need another quarterback this week, but who cares about Goff? You're not going to play him against Buffalo probably. Akers, I'd like to see what he does at least this week with no Darrell Henderson. What if he gets 25 carries? But Dillon's cuttable. He's just a handcuff. You treat him like any other handcuff at this point, and I would cut him. Gus, I'd still want to hold on to. Drake looked like shit this last week We know it's a good run game. So any of Dillon, Akers, and Goff are cuttable. I'd probably go Dillon and Goff first, and I'd try to get both those guys. So Mixon owner, would you drop Madison to get Perine? Do you need to start Perine? Because if you do, then yeah. If not, if it's just a bench stash, Madison continues to be the better option, in my opinion. Giuseppe, better tight end rest of the season. Moreau, Tunyon, Ingram, Gesicki, Logan, Thomas, or Fant. How about none of the above? Is Juwan Johnson gone? I guess of all these guys, it's Ingram. The target share. Don't love any of them, though. But if Juwan Johnson's there, that's where we want to go. Traded Fields away last night for Chase. Oh, my God, that's amazing. No, you shouldn't feel bad. Somebody else accepted the deal, DJ. That's part of the, there's no, if somebody accepts the deal, like it wouldn't be, I think it's just idiotic accepting in the first place. Like Jamar Chase should never have gone that cheap, but they did it. And I don't think he's going to be out for the season. And you shouldn't feel bad that somebody else is a moron. Like that's not your job to feel bad about. No, just good. Well done. You should feel excited that you just got a top 5 receiver for a good quarterback, especially if you had a good quarterback behind him, though. Like, great trade. Burks or Pickens? I would go Pickens if I had the option between the two. And I love Burks, but give me Pickens. Must sit one, Godwin, Olave, Debo. And Pickens is already getting it done, Michael, I'm going to sit. Tough to sit any of these guys. I'll have a better sense, TN, on the Thanksgiving morning show, but right now, I'd probably say Olave. But I need to check it out. Thanks for the Cook call. Oh, yeah, it did. He got 86 yards for you. That's right. Tight ends are Kmet, Thomas, Bryant, McBride, Likely. I like Kmet the most of all those guys. And if not him, then probably Logan Thomas. But Kmet's definitely the top option of all of those. Should I drop Mike Williams for D. Watson stash? No, don't drop Mike. I mean, they said the injury wasn't anything too serious. We know his upside when he's healthy. So no, I do like stashing Watson, but you got Herbert already. Like you don't drop Mike. No. Stay with Kmet or put in a waiver for Juwan Johnson. That's a good one, especially if Fields is done for a little while here. Like Kmet gets that much sketchier. Oh man, I probably prefer Johnson for the rest of the year. So yeah. But if that costs you like a good waiver spot, then it's not worth it. They're very close. So maybe that's when like you wait in the morning, and then if he's still there, you pick him up, and you don't like cost yourself moving up in the waiver wire order, Daniel. All righty, well, Beck, that wraps it up. Thank you again so much for being here. On the way out, 30 of you, please do consider hitting that thumbs up button if you're new here and you haven't already. Please do sub as well. It would be awesome to have you return. Like I mentioned, I'll be live Thanksgiving morning, 10:30 a.m. to hit all those hit starts, get the drinks flowing, ready for the best holiday there absolutely is in the world. So thanks again so much for being here for those waiver wire pickups, Wolfpack. All of our content's at rotostreetjournal.com. We breed and feed you fantasy wolves. I'm at RotoStreetWolf as well. And a wolf of fantasy sheep. Be the wolves, guys. Later.